Hello, mentors. Let's talk about Let's Read Tagalog. So this is part 2 in our meeting 4 of winter 25. And so it's this part here. Let's talk just in this video about analyzing data. And let's also only talk about this part of answering these questions. And let's not talk much about this part, which we'll talk in another video. So for this part, we have this data, students will make sense of it. It's talking about lengths. So it says we translate 20 words or phrases from English to Tagalog, and the results are in the next page. So they have the words and the phrases, they have the lengths, and they have the translations, but they're not in order. So T1, T2, here T1, T2 matches with this, but at some point it doesn't follow the exact order. So that's important to keep in mind. So in general, did the number of letters grow from English to Tagalog? There are several ways to do it. One is to just look as a whole these lengths as a set, right? Without any structure or any order, just a set of numbers, and then analyze, it gets transformed to this set of numbers. You see that here's the same kind of, but then it begins to grow, right? Because here you have 20, 22, 23, so on. Here you jump to 26 and so on. So you jump a lot. Here you have up to 30, and here you have beyond 30 a lot. So it's clear that Tagalog gets longer. Okay. So yes, here it grew, right? We could say that it grew for sure. Not in all cases, but in general. So let's take a look at the solutions here. Yeah, so increase, looking at the lists. Okay, the second question is conceptual. Each point in the graph represents, students could first think that it just represents a word in English. They could also think that it represents a word in Spanish. They could think it represents a length. They could think that it represents a pair of lengths, or they could think that it really represents or corresponds to a translation. And I guess that would be the most complete answer, that it represents, yes, it represents two lengths, but it corresponds to two words. So whoever built this graph had two words or phrases, one in English, one in Tagalog, and applied this, found the length. So it's important to know that these 20 are beyond the language, are the concepts, right? So for example, elephant or elefante, we don't care, we have a point for that animal there, the meaning itself. Labeling the two axes will be easy now because we see that this doesn't go past 30 something, right? Whereas this goes way past 30. So this has to be the longer language, so Tagalog, and this should be English. Draw a trend line to represent all points as best as you can. So we could just try, or students should try. A reasonable assumption is that 0,0 should be in the line because length 0, which should correspond to length 0 in general. So this line is predicting how the translations correspond in a multiplicative way. What's the percentage of increase, or what's the scaling factor? So here we see that the point of the line, for example, here would be 10, a new point. In English, the length 10, and in Tagalog would be 13. So the slope would be 13 over 10. Students should connect with what they did in part 1 when they were doing Spanish and English, and connect that this is exactly how we do this, how we find these scaling factors. We divide the new divided by the old, or the original, 5 over 4. So it's exactly the same idea. It's exactly the same concept of scaling factor, the slope. How many lines are possible? Well, I mean, students could maybe do this or do this. So these are tolerable. Maybe here or here, those are fine. What they shouldn't be doing is something like this, right? That it's really far from the data, or like this. So that should make sense. Or that starts well somehow, right? Like in 0, 0. And then it just deviates a lot. So that shouldn't be allowed. And you should discuss, yeah, why did you put that line there? Students may also be interested in catching lots of points. So the most points that pass exactly, but that's not really necessary. It's more that as a whole, they get closer and closer. So here, how many points we got? Like 1, 2, 3, maybe just 3. So students may be tempted to maybe catch, I don't know, 5 here, but then it doesn't represent these points because it just goes through here. So a lot of discussing without even saying that it's a line of best fit or there's a formula or minimization problem. You don't want to go there. It's not necessary. Only staying in the, friendly terminology, friendly words, friendly concepts in the sense of this activity, you can get a lot of juice. You can get a lot of concepts about data, about slopes, scaling factors, averages, representations, etc. So 1.3 or similar should be a good answer. And then it's the slope of the trend line. So that's a nice conclusion. Yeah, so for number 4, you can use cluster, passes closer to most points, represent most points, etc. So lots of things there. Okay, so I hope you have fun in this activity and see you in another video. Goodbye.